The 1970s was full of muscle cars, especially in America. Going into the 1980s, they had all these horrible emission laws and things were starting to change. However, if you were like me, in the late 1970s, you loved the look of the American muscle car. Welcome to Motors for the Masses. And this is the 1980 Chevrolet Camaro. The Camaro came in several different variations. You had the RS model, the SS model, the Berlinetta model, the LT model, the Z28 model. This one is the Berlinetta and comes with the 5.7 litre V8 engine. You may think it's a simple pull a lever under the dashboard there, but on this model, oh no, they are much more cleverer than that. Instead of staying dry in your nice clothes and you just pull a little lever, you have to get down on the floor, lean underneath somewhere, pull a handle, and get them stuck. And this is how you open the bonnet. Seriously, my fingers are stuck. So, once you've been to the hospital and reattached your knuckles, you lift the bonnet, or hood as they say in America, to discover the 350 cubic inch V8. Wow, that must be powerful, I hear you say. Well, in the late 70s, emission laws came in and they restricted everything about the engine. So instead of having like a 250, 300 brake horsepower V8, it reduced it down to, in this one, 175 brake horsepower. Now things didn't get much better in the 90s. They still had the V8, although they went down to a 5 litre, but it was still only producing 170 brake horsepower. Of course, with the torque figures, you were looking at a 0 to 60 of 7.9 seconds, but it wasn't until after the 2000s were well underway that they started to realise they could do more with this electronic crap and produce a lot more power. Which then brings us to the Camaro of today, and you're looking at still a V8 engine, but an engine that develops 455 brake horsepower. That's a big difference from the 70s up to today. Inside? Well, it's like every 70s muscle car really. It's low, it's comfortable, the steering wheel feels as though possibly one time it was connected to the wheels that move around on the road. It's very light, but sort of pointless really, but that's not uncommon for any 70s muscle car. I say 70s, this one is a 1980, but you know what I mean, it's the same thing. It's very smooth on the road, this car in particular. I don't feel as though I'm driving a 70s car. There's no rattles, there's no squeaks, there's no knocks. It actually feels very nice to drive. Now I've driven some American cars before, I actually own one of course, two, and I've had 70s. I had a 78 Trans Am and that was rattly and squeaky and all sorts. This is lovely, really nice and smooth inside. You know, bearing in mind it's not lightning quick, the thing you do get when you put your foot down is this. That does mean of course we have to stop for petrol now. Now apart from the fact that it empties your wallet when you fill up the fuel tank, you do get to do this again. Let's be honest, that never gets boring. smooth it is when you pull away. I mean, we're idling nicely around the corner, nice little burble, and then the pickup is pretty instant. Again, like I said, it's not lightning quick, but it just sounds awesome. I mean, this car is not about speed, is it? It's about presence on the road. It's about how the car sounds, how the car feels, how you feel when you're in it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, yes. Of course, I'm not going to get any illusions that I am Burt Reynolds in Smoking the Bandit, because please remember that was a 78 Trans Am and this is a 1980s Camaro. They may look similar, but they're not the same car. Of course, being gentle on a roundabout is par for the course. And then the only problem you get, of course, again, being a 70s or 80s classic muscle car, is wind noise. That's to be expected. Don't worry about it. And let's be honest, most of the time you'll have the windows open anyway, so... Brakes are, again, typical of a 70s muscle car. They are there. They don't work, but they are there. So as you can see, you don't need a great deal of brake horsepower to have fun. It's all about torque and noise. Now we could stand here all day and argue about brake horsepower figures and whether torque is more important and my car's got more power than your car, and it's irrelevant, because when you're looking at a car like this from the 1970s or 1980s, it's all about presence on the road. It's massive, it's different, it's just gorgeous. The lines are unique. I just love it so much, and it doesn't make a difference whether you've got 1,000 brake horsepower or 150 brake horsepower. When you're driving this car, it's all about how you feel when you're on the road with it, and I feel awesome.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying out its prayer. Why are we so ashamed to be alive? Break the chains and our freedom's ours to take.
The interior on this car is very red stroke burgundy. Again, from the 1970s, you didn't get all the extra electronics, and you certainly don't get sat-nav. However, you do get air conditioning, and being the Berlinetta model, it's a slightly different fascia than the standard RS or even the SS model. Of course you get a stereo, but again it's nothing fancy. There's no CD players, there's no MP3, it's just a cassette radio. And of course you do get the Berlinetta badges on this one because it's a Berlinetta model. Now, talking about the different models, it's very difficult to understand which ones came in when and which ones went out when. If I remember correctly, I think the Berlinetta replaced the LT of the mid to late 70s, and the RS came in the early 80s, and then the SS model, I can't quite remember when that came in, and the Z28 has always been around. So it's all about trim level and different power in the engine. That's the other thing. There may have been a 350 in this, but there may also have been a 350 in the RS model with slightly different horsepower. Brake horsepower figures were 175 up to 190, then you went into the Z28 model which had 220 or something around that. It's just very difficult to know around the 70s and 80s what engine you had, what model you had, and what you were getting for your money. In this particular car, the standard automatic shifter has been replaced with this sort of semi-automatic, semi-manual arrangement from B&M. right next to this electric windows, I forgot to add, button here. To change gear, you would lift the shifter up, pull it all the way down, I can't do it now because the engine's not running, into first stroke second, and then once it engages gear, push it forward into drive, and off you go. And then when you stop, you just lift it up and push it into park. It's pretty simple to get used to. Now what's the point of that, I hear you ask? Well, again, in the 70s, drag racing was a very big thing, and if you were drag racing your car, albeit not very quickly, you would stick it in first, and as you pull away, you just bang the shifter, bang, 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 all the way through the 3 gears that you get. Now, in amongst this fascia here, you have this secret door. Here is where you fill up with fuel, very often. So what about the boot, I hear you ask? Yes, it has one. So it just goes to show you don't need a great deal of horsepower to have a lot of fun. Now this particular car is for sale, and the link for it is in the description below. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Motors for the Masses. Thank you very much for watching. Please tune in next time when we'll be back with car reviews and Grand Tour reviews, and soon the new series of Top Gear reviews. So until then, please drive carefully, but have fun. And don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget the giveaway, which is also in the description below. Thank you very much. Bye bye.